Anonymous, my PPOR is mortgage-free, well done, and 2 other investment properties that have a rental yield at 7%, mind you. Now, whether that's gross or net, I presume it's gross. That's fantastic. Pretty much your holding cost in today's money would be neutral or even positive, right? So am I reading that we're not only mortgage-free, but we've also got 2 investments that are mortgage-free, or have they got loans? I don't know.
No, I'm not sure, but
Let's
they've got a good rental
go as
yield.
though the mortgage is free.
Yeah.
Like we've got no loan on our own home, but we've got loans on our investment properties. But they've got great yields, so they're probably not costing us anything. I'm 48, single without dependents. That's why. Right? That's where we went wrong, Rach. Had kids. Based on $850K budget, would I be better to get another IP, investment property, or investing in ETFs, considering the potential tax rules changes? What are the tax rule changes?
Let's get Glenn in here.
Well, any case, this is a really depends sort of conversation, isn't it? It's like, well, okay, I've got 850. Do I want a third investment property? Am I just this property nerd that all I do is property? Or do I need some exposure to other types of assets in my life?
Yeah.
It really depends. I'm like, okay, for me personally, I'm like, okay, why not a third investment property? Because I love it and I understand it, I know it, and I trust it. Diversification is also really important. It's a key. It really depends on how you think you want to be structured in 10, 15, 20 years' time. And this is not a rule for everyone by any means. It's just me personally. I'm like, okay, my real estate does the heavy lifting in terms of its wealth creation. You buy something for 600 in 20 years' time, it's worth 1.5 or whatever it is. It's not giving me cash flow. My ETFs or my share portfolio, whatever, that can be the passive income stream for me, right? Not saying everyone does that, but I think it's understanding what they want out of their life in the next 10 to 20 years. Do they want high passive income? How much diversification do they want in their whole portfolio of wealth? And then making a decision from there.
And in that position, is getting maybe some financial advice a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really just because you're looking at 2 sides of the coin, and a good financial advisor is going to say, right, you've got this on the table now. Where do you want to be in X amount of years? And which one's going to give you the best outcome for that long term? A not so good financial advisor will be saying, let's go down the just one sort of, So I think it's, you're probably right. Let's go and see someone and get on with our life.
Get some modelling out there. Dan says...
Oh, here we go.
He asked me to sing Achy Breaky Heart, which I'm
Rach.
not going to do.
Come
I
on.
will do it at another time, though, absolutely. I just wanted to see if Pidge would know this one. Serious question. Pidge would know that song. You know what? He would know that song, Achy Breaky Heart. More from your genre. Serious question though. Investors talk about using equity from investment property 1 to buy investment property 2 without any physical cash input. How does this work with serviceability? As I understand that borrowing from investment property 1 to use as a 10% deposit for investment property 2 at 90%. If I can't make the math because surely serviceability becomes capped very quickly. Yet investors talk about 2, 3, 4, 5 plus properties they have with minimal deposits. Please explain and thank you.
Yeah, so thanks, Dan. Billy Ray Cyrus is not in the room today, but Rachel is.
You would have known that one.
Yes, knew that one. But this is up your alley in respect to servicing, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I would say you are correct. I would say most people buy their first investment property and most investment properties without any physical cash, especially if we're talking about the traditional sense. So the traditional investor, and I know it's changed recently, but the traditional investor has their own home, they get some equity in that property over time, and then they utilise that equity to borrow 100% plus costs for investment property 1, and then they tend to wait. They wait a little while, and this is the patience part of probably this generation changes from maybe the previous generations. But traditionally, we buy investment property one and wait to get a little bit of equity across that portfolio again, but also maybe wait until the rent in property two, their investment property one, has increased a little bit. So it is paying for itself. Yeah. And then they go again, not putting any cash in. Now, I think in the current climate, people are a little less patient and they want things right now all the time. And I do think people are trying to buy more quickly than before. And so we do come up against this serviceability issue where I'm trying to buy property 2 or 3 before investment property 1 is actually paying for itself. And that's where you need the cash.
Absolutely. So question then, on the back of that, how important is the yield in my property versus the income/servicing in my personal life?
Yeah, well, it is important in the bank's calculators, but something to consider, Dan, is that the bank doesn't just have when you're borrowing again for the property 2 and 3, the bank doesn't just look about what you're actually physically putting into that property. They're looking at the principal and interest repayment, and traditionally, investors pay interest. They are looking at the principal and interest repayment over a shorter period of time, so 25 years, with 3% on top of the rate. So you kind of need, even though you might, I'm just going to use really bush math. Let's say you're putting $5,000 a year into a property. The bank might need $20,000 a year of your disposable income in the calculator.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
But if the rent in that particular property is giving him $10,000 a year, for example, that's going to increase his overall servicing in his life to borrow more money. Yeah,
that is right. So the more rent that you're getting for the property, the more, the easier it is on the bank servicing calculator. But looking at that shading is really important. But I think for people to get 3, 4 and 5 properties, sometimes it does take time, and sometimes you do need that dust to settle on that first investment property before you're going on to the second. I think when people are trying to buy 4 properties in a 3-year period, it can be really tough.
Slow down, Dan. Slow down is Rachel's message. But all right, so Dan doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah, he wants to go now.
He wants to hear Billy Ray Cyrus, and he wants to take action tomorrow.
Yeah.
So people talk about these trusts, these structures where we say, okay, we can hide a property in a trust. And it's essentially what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So is that an option for someone?
Yeah, well, we've just done an episode on trusts. I think it's about to go up, but when we had an accountant come in and actually talk about that in a little bit more detail. Now, look, can you lock away a property in a trust and serviceability-wise you don't get capped out? Absolutely, you can. But the reality is you still need to pay that gap of the property. So even though that property, for the accountant to write a letter to say, hey, that property is paying for itself, it actually still has to be paying for itself. And sometimes that can take some time. So you might buy a property today and there might be, $100 a week gap that you're putting in. And in 3 years' time, that rent might be at a level that you're not putting anything in. That's when the accountant can write a letter to say that property's covering itself. You can move forward without counting that into serviceability. Now, if that was in your personal name, that whole, I said that it's only costing you 5, but the bank's calculators want 20. Yeah. That other 15 would get ignored. Yeah. If that made sense for your next lot of property. So, it is something to consider.
But not all banks will offer that lending.
No. That's just a policy that some banks have, that they go, if you've bought this property in a trust back here and you've got an accountant's letter saying that particular property covers itself, you don't need to include that in the next property serviceability.
Yeah, okay. And random question, I think there's like 87 lenders or something in the country. How many of the main ones would you say do take that into account, do you know?
Yeah, the ones that do it well, I would say I've got 4 banks that do it well, as in, they don't need to get things that the accountants don't want to sign.
Yeah, okay.
And they're good lenders.
Yeah.
Like it's not a strategy that, there's only one bank that does it and they're charging extra interest. It's nothing like that. I'm talking, blue chip bank with a great rate. But it's about whether there's things you need to consider when you're using different structures of whether it suits your overall strategy as well. Putting the 10% deposit in, I understand what people are saying where, serviceability will get capped out if I don't put the deposit in. But again, I'd put the deposit in but using it to reduce my own home because that's still going to
Yeah.
It's still going to increase your serviceability
Increase it 'cause
in a
you got less debt.
tax-effective environment.
Yeah. Way back when, there was a period there where it seemed as though once the banks had lent me like $2 million, they're like, yeah, no, we've capped out with this person. Is there it's much more complicated than that, obviously, but is there a figure where you say, okay, no, you can lend $5 million as long as the servicing is suffice, i.e. the rental income and your personal income year to year? Do they look at a total debt level and say, right, Rachel's got $3 million of debt here, regardless of how strong her servicing is, we're out?
No, I think with most of the lenders, and there's a few of the small lenders that don't want a certain amount of debt. They look at over $3 million and they go, that's actually not our comfort level. Or over 4 investment properties isn't our comfort level. But there's always going to be a bank that looks at it just on your overall income, that's your income, as well as your rental income, minus the other debts that you've got. And it all goes into a calculator. Now, when people are saying it's harder to build property portfolios now than it was 10 years ago, they're absolutely right. So if I just rewind the clock 10 years, you could do 15 years interest only with a bank. I've still got clients in my portfolio that I put on 15 years interest only loans, and they're happy as Larry sitting there for another 5 years until that finishes. Now, the other thing that happened back then, though, is that the banks looked at the interest only repayment in the calculator, and that's all they used. Yeah. So in the servicing calculator, the bank would just use the interest only repayment. Now they're using principal and interest at a shorter term with another 3%. Yeah. So is it harder to build a portfolio now than 10 years ago? Absolutely. Is that something I think that has been engineered to slow investors? Yes, because what would have happened if they didn't do that? Look how fast the market's growing now. Imagine if there wasn't some levers pulled 7 years ago, 10 years ago to slow the market down.
Yeah, and also it's a little bit of responsible lending too, isn't it? Like there was a bit of an overhaul there. But on that as well, some lenders also only take a percentage of your rent coming in, don't they? Like 80% of your rent.
Yeah, well, it's always 80%. Some take less, but generally it's 80% of the rent. And really, you only get 80%. When you think of what you pay for insurance and management costs and a bit of vacancy, it's probably a fair and reasonable assessment to use 80% of the rent. Yeah.
All right. I hope that helps, Dan. Love the approach to say, I want to build a portfolio, but it doesn't necessarily mean, and I say it all the time, number of properties mean nothing. It's quality in your portfolio that's performing for you regularly, and all roads lead to Rome. Like you can get 2 or 3 good quality assets and create a really strong wealth outcome out of that versus trying to have 6 or 7 that you have to manage and issues going on and different tenants and different property managers and everything else.
Yeah, and not having that cash flow in your life because you're trying to hold them all. Like they eventually will be cash positive. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one, which is a story for another day, but we can get strategic in that. And we talked about the trust structure, but also like a joint venture.
Yes.
You say, well, okay, what am I lacking? Am I lacking deposit or am I lacking servicing? Okay, maybe can I get someone in that has really strong servicing that also might not have a deposit? Okay, we've got a match. Now we can go and buy an investment together. 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah, are you seeing a little bit more of that now?
Well, I just think back to my own portfolio.
Yeah.
50% of my portfolio is JVs.
Yeah, wow.
Right? And I don't know if I've ever actually told anyone that. So I've just told Australia. But I love a JV because so many times over the last 25 years, and that's every 5 minutes, I've wanted to go and invest and I haven't been able to. So I'm like, okay, left field, right field, how do I actually get a result right now?
Yeah.
I think it's something that, and I talk about it in my book, so we'll put the link in the show notes to the good old book, but I think it's something that if we have got a passion for building wealth and it is going to be in residential property, we just keep knocking doors down and looking at different options as opposed to the traditional way of 20% deposit, no LMI, principal and interest or interest only and try and do that. It can be a slow approach depending on our situation.
Yeah. I hope that helps, Dan.